of
So,
his.
so he made it to his death, right? When he goes, before that, he goes, was I a peaceful king? Like, whatever you remember it as. Motherfucker, what are you, Joe Biden right now? Sorry, I didn't mean to get political,
Nah,
subs.
you're right.
Hey, Indigo made the beat.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Heroes Peak podcast. I am your host, Chris, and I'm here with my friends, Mike and James, and we're here to talk about movies. We're talking about entertainment, culture, whatever the hell we feel like. And today, those topics include DC, big turnaround news. We got Werewolf by Night, and and our final House of the Dragon review for the season. Yeah, unfortunately, I did not finish, so but that's okay. That's all right. These guys are the experts. They know what they're talking about. I haven't even.
Yeah, we can't spoil your last episode. You have to watch it.
Yeah.
Dude.
That's okay.
You know why he didn't watch it, right? Because he freaking was watching. He watched Arcane like 4 more times this week.
I actually snuck in the first 3 episodes of Chainsaw Man.
Yeah, I never even heard of that.
Things.
What the hell was that about?
Yeah, that's what I heard about it too. But through my other, actually from the Ringer. Shout out to the Ringer, by the way. Somebody mentioned it on the Ringer podcast.
It's Halloween time. It's an okay time for Chainsaw Man. Anyway, the more important news we got going on was the big shakeup over at DC, where
Not Washington D.C.
James Gunn and Peter Safran have been hired to lead the film and television division for the next 4 years on contract. I think I saw. And we'll see where we go from there. And on top of that, just news dropping today is Henry Cavill dropping Witcher to go back and play Superman. Maybe not 1 for 1, but as far as we know, he dropped the Witcher and he just got rehired as Superman. So,
Yeah, that's tough.
What do you guys think of this this choice?
I mean, my thing is, and this came to me straight off my, thinking about it when the announcement was the other day, is James Gunn going to be like a true Kevin Feige, where he's the architect, he's got a vision of where he wants to see DC in the next 4 or 5 years? Or is he going to be more like Zack Snyder, where he's directing and he's not taking other visions or other input. He's actually formulating whatever movies are coming down the pipeline, which is basically what Zack Snyder did. Whereas Kevin Feige allowed other directors to come in as long as they knew the blueprint of where he wanted it to go. Other directors were allowed to come in and change this, change that, add their flavor. That's the only thing I'm worried about. Like, is he going to be like a true Kevin Feige, or is he like Zack Snyder plus?
So I saw a Twitter response he had to someone that said he wasn't done directing movies, but it doesn't feel to me that he's there to direct all of the movies, because he still has not Suicide Squad, Peacemaker going on, which is under him.
Yeah, but Chris, you know what that sounds like, right? Zack Snyder didn't direct Wonder Woman. That's Patty Jenkins. Didn't direct Aquaman. That was Jason Lee. I forgot the Fast and Furious director. So that sounds a little. James Wan, thank you. That's sounding a little more like the Zack Snyder approach.
Either way, I don't really think it's a good idea. Like, I love James Gunn. I love his movies. But
yeah, Chris, if what you're telling me is exactly what he plans to do, then I don't think it's a good idea.
I guess we don't know. That's the problem.
But he's got his style is his style of movies, and I love his styles for Suicide Squad and Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know if I want his style in every DC movie. You know what I mean?
But I don't think you're going to get that. I think if we take if we pan back from his style, his specific kind of raunchy comedy within the emotional found family kind of movies that we've seen him make in the superhero universes. If we pay it back from that, he likes the off the wall, the weird, the different characters. He likes to pull from the sidelines. So
You're right, and he also likes ensemble cast. He has yet to do anything with a singular character or hero.
Right.
Batman, Superman, you name it.
So I don't think he's out there to direct Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. I think he's going, okay, he's probably, my guess, this is a complete guess, he's going to go, all right, Patty Jenkins, you got this, you got this, you got this. James Wan, you got Aquaman. But I think he is more likely to hear a pitch for someone that says, hey, I want to do a Clayface, not a Clayface. I want a hero. What's a side? I don't even know.
Green Lantern.
Yeah, I guess a Green Lantern, but a weird Green Lantern. Wouldn't it be more awesome to have something like a Green Lantern from another planet rather than another fucking Hal Jordan or something?
Yes, you could do that. But I don't think James Gunn's the guy, and I don't think that. I don't know. Again, we're speculating right now, to our audience and subscribers. We have no clue what's happening. We just know that James Gunn now has this Kevin Feige-like role. And I think Mike might agree with me, this is becoming more like a Zack Snyder position than a true Kevin Feige. That's just my, what we think.
And for anybody who's asking, Peter Safran, who's obviously his co-runner here, is a producer who produced several DC movies, including The Suicide Squad, Aquaman, Peacemaker, but also a lot of horror movies and things like that. So,
am I correct? Was he not part of Miss Marvel, or am I confusing? I thought I read somewhere that he directed at least 1 or 2 episodes of Miss Marvel.
No. He's just a straight producer as far as I'm looking at his IMDb.
I could be wrong. Michael cleared and edit and post edit.
Yeah, he just seems to be like a producer guy. So he's more of a Kevin Feige style executive, and he does a lot of horror. Like, I see a ton of horror movies on The Conjuring, The Starving Games, some crappy ones, old ones. So The Nun.
Yeah.
But also DC's on here. Shazam, Peacemaker, Suicide Squad. So
I think just to put a bow on this, I myself, and I think Mike might agree, is I don't think this is a smart decision on DC Warner Brothers Discovery as putting James Gunn in that Kevin Feige role, because I don't think he has the same skill set that Kevin Feige has demonstrated to us so far. But again, we really root. For those of you guys who don't think we don't root for DC, we really do. We root for DC. I root for DC. My favorite comic book superhero of all time resides in DC. I'm just hurt way too many times to fall victim, and I'm like cautiously optimistic that maybe James Gunn might have a better vision, but I'm also very, very apprehensive that a person like James Gunn could really rise DC out of the ashes. So that's my final
worry is
on that.
It's like if they hired Taika Waititi to replace Kevin Feige, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it would just be really
somebody with overwhelming personality. I
don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it's one thing we don't get out of Kevin Feige's overwhelming personality.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. I saw him at the Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I was watching it online, and he was so bland and dry. He was like, every question they asked him, hey, what do you think of Chadwick Boseman's legacy? Or what do you think about Phase 5 and Space? He was like, no. Like, he didn't give you any real answers. Like, you have no idea where the wind is making him flow, but behind closed doors, he's got a plan, which is weird, but yeah. All right.
Anything to say, Mike?
Nah, we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, I guess for me, I feel a little bit more positive about it. I think he's got enough of the geek love of weird characters that he could say yes to some things that we might not otherwise get out of a stock standard DC money guy, right?
He could actually give us Wonder Twins and make it freaking lovable.
Right.
I can see him pulling that off.
Except I hope he doesn't direct many. Maybe one if he really still wants to. I know he likes to do that, but I really want him if he wants this job, the way this job should just be like the president. He like sits in his office, he tells people what to do. He has meetings all day. He keeps an eye on stuff, but that's it. That's all I want him to do on this. But DC, we'll see. And so long, Witcher. It was nice knowing you.
Damn.
And we are back. And we are talking about Werewolf by Night, the Marvel Studios special presentation, which seems to be maybe a new little title card they're throwing out there for a few things, which will include the future the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special that we just saw an ad for. But this, I guess with the advertising, I was prepared for it, but I was really surprised when we first saw the ads for this. This is someone like Kevin Feige being so far into the universe that he says someone can come to him and go, look, there's this comic book, and I would like to make like a 1 hour special out of it, and I think it'd be really cool, and I've got some weird ideas out of it, and he can allow it, and it can be wonderful and successful as it is. So this is directed by Michael Giacchino.
Yeah, we know him.
Giacchino.
Especially us Lost fans.
Yeah. Oh, yeah? He's a Lost director?
He started from the musical side. He did a lot of the score. Yeah, I'm sorry. He did a lot of the composition and music for the Lost TV show. And then I think he did a few for a lot of the other superhero movies. I can't remember off the top of my head. Both DC and Marvel.
He did
and the Star Trek universe too.
Right, Star Trek, Lost. Quite a few things.
But it's his debut as an actual director, though. As far as I know, this is his debut. Yeah,
yes, it was.
All right, so this was originally based off the Jerry Conway and Jack Russell created Werewolf by Night. Writers Heather Quinn and Peter Cameron. I did not look up any of their stuff. Starring Gail Garcia Bernal, Laura Donnelly, and Harriet Sanson. Wow, Sanson Harris.
Getting better, Chris. You're getting better.
I'm getting there. Those were pretty easy names, but I know Harriet Harris did it for me in this movie. I thought she was awesome. Really put on a great performance. What did you guys think overall of this black and white special presentation, one-off horror comic? I don't know. What do you call it? TV special.
Okay, Mike, you go.
Yeah, go ahead.
I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was very entertaining. I'd never heard of this stuff before, like in the comics or whatever. Like, I know Marvel has their dark side of the lore, but I didn't know anybody specific, but this was cool. I love the black and white element of it, the classic styling, the film, the actual
film grain,
film grain in it, and all that good stuff. The score was great, the acting was great in it. So definitely, recommend people watch this if you haven't seen it already.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
Like Mike, I wasn't really too familiar with it. I knew they existed. I knew that the comics were around. It just didn't pique my interest. I was more interested in the mainstream universe of what's happening in Marvel, the mutants, the cosmic folks, and the Avengers, whatnot. Other than Blade, I wasn't really following anyone from the dark Marvel universe. So to know that they were going to release this as a TV special, I had to go up here. I have my Marvel encyclopedia. I had to go through and I learned about Man-Thing. And again, I'm realizing the dichotomy between Marvel and DC, how for decades they were just not robbing each other, but they were stealing IP.
Copying back and forth.
Yeah, copying. Man-Thing is their version of Swamp Man. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. What I didn't know about it was the way, I think Mike started talking about about it was how they're going to present it to us in the special, with the old school Abbott and Costello, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman type of feel.
Yeah.
Which for many of our subscribers who are under like the age 30, you're not going to understand this reference at all. The rest of you guys will. I thought that was a genius way of portraying these characters that I barely knew, anything about. And I like the concept.
Yeah, we actually, not a horror fan, as you guys know, but we threw this on with a family from 17 to 70. Everybody had a great time watching it. It was entertaining, suspenseful. The black and white cover makes everything different. Like every lost limb, every blood splatter isn't quite the same when it's in black and white, and you're like, that's probably chocolate syrup, right?
That's how they were able to get away with the PG-13 rating.
Right, exactly.
Because of that, yeah.
So it definitely works in its advantage that way, but it makes you feel those old movies. I mean, we used to watch them like Nosferatu or things like that on they would replay those sometimes at Halloween time and those kinds of things, and it's a great timing, and it's a great for as many people as you want to sit down and watch, because not everybody wants to watch an actual slasher movie on Halloween. Not everybody wants to watch Hocus Pocus, the silly, fun, This gets that. It's what Marvel's been nailing this whole time. They have a wide range audience for their wares, and they make it entertaining. And I just gotta say, the acting, I loved. It was a little over the top. It was nice and big. It was fun. I love the werewolf design. What did you guys think of the werewolf design? It was more of a human face.
I was shocked. So I was actually expecting the werewolf from like American Werewolf in London style. Mm-hmm. Like full lycanthrope, where it's like you're a wolf beast. Not the classic, I should have known, Jack Russell. Not the classic Wolfman from the 30s. Mm-hmm. That was shocking to me. But there's some Marvel and the group behind this production were able to give you the ferocity and speed of like the American Werewolf version on the 1930s version of Wolfman, which I've never seen before. So I'm like, yeah, he looks like, the old school werewolf, but the dude was slashing and ripping and running like the what was the Celine werewolf movies that came out in the early 2000s? That the vampire werewolves and Underworld,
yeah.
Yeah, the same ferocity with those versions of the werewolf, but in like the 1930s classic look.
Yeah, exactly.
That to me was brand new. I've never seen that before anywhere.
And a lot of fun character designs outside of the werewolf too, that were very, very recognizable. You could definitely pick one person for the next. Just great fun makeup. It's in the black and white. It's sometimes it takes a lot of work to get everything. I was gonna say,
when you remove the color, you focus on so many other details. When the color's not there, you're focusing on like the mannerisms and a bunch of things that's happening that I would imagine if this was like saturated or regular TV color, you probably wouldn't have looked at it the same way and missed so many like horror tricks that they were doing with the lighting and the candles, and then the scene where only his shadow shown first and then him. That stuff is, I don't know if they did it on purpose at first or just thought about it after, halfway through putting together the movie, but I was really impressed by that.
Yeah. One thing that stuck out to me, and I really loved it, I've mentioned I'm watching Supernatural, is the shadow usage. So one thing Supernatural does is, instead of making gigantic wings for people and investing in feathers for days, is they do this little flash of light and you see a shadow of wings. And they did
sound the flap, right. Yeah.
But they did that here with the transformation. Instead of doing a full American Werewolf in London transformation and the disgusting nature of that, they were like zoomed in on the woman's face and how scared she was watching it. and then you'd see the flash and you'd see the transformation happen.
Brilliant.
Good work. Good usage of time and effort. It doesn't always have to be the most gruesome thing to be a little frightening or to be good. I kind of like that.
Listen, this movie was good enough for this special, whatever you want to call it, is good enough for me. Is I'm going to play it again later on this evening for a room full of 13, 14-year-olds and have them entertained out of their minds, and not feel like it's like watching Halloween, the original Halloween, you know.
Yeah, we're gonna have a bunch of people over for Halloween, various ages. So you could stick it on, and even though there's a toddler in the room, they're not going to be watching it. And even if they stick their head up, they're not going to see anything that would
give them nightmares other than Swamp Thing or Man Thing.
Man Thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, what did you think?
I did like, so Man Thing kind of reminded me of Swamp Thing stuff a little bit. That was cool. And you know how I feel about Swamp Thing, so that's my boy.
Doom Patrol boy over here.
Yeah, I want to see. I want them to do like a sequel or something. That would be really cool. Like, bring me more of this, like the dark stuff, right? But I was hoping. So I don't know if you guys noticed. They kept like there was like an Easter egg about the TVA. It looked like TVA.
Yeah. Because in the trailers, I noticed that because in the trailers for this, they showed like it was like some TVA folks with the nightsticks,
with the batons and stuff. But I don't know if it was them, but they didn't. Yeah,
they had similar mannerisms and style of combat and like weaponry. But I don't think it was really them. And I was looking because I remember in the trailer, it looked very much like it was a TVA. And then watching the special, I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't look the way. Yeah,
I think it's probably a good reuse of some costumes.
Yeah, the other tie-in I was really hoping for was a Blade tie-in somehow. Since we're getting Blade.
Yeah, I think they really wanted to do that, but right now Blade's going through some problems in production and pre-production. So maybe they probably said, let's not muddy this any more than it needs to be. Good call by them. Yeah. For those who don't know, our subs out there, Blade has been going through some pretty bad pre-production issues with, they got rid of the original director because he wasn't agreeing with the vision where he thought the movie was going to go. Mahershala Ali's still contracted to play the main character, but even he's upset. He's publicly come out and said how he's upset with the way the production was going. So, but that's bad.
Yeah, maybe they tag Mr. Giancino here. Pull him over.
He'd be great. He'd be great. Yeah.
I thought this had a little bit of everything. It had the little bit of humor with the. Oh wow. Okay, so Man Thing's a good guy, but he can also kick your ass, blow you up from the inside.
Right.
And a little bit of action with the werewolf stuff.
Like Chris, this really and I mentioned this earlier. This really reminded me of the Abbott Costello Frankenstein and Werewolf Wolfman, because Frankenstein was like the big heavy, right? But he was like a little bit like not brain. He was a little bit slow, dim-witted. Gentle giant type of thing, and the Wolfman was the more like the aggressiver, and then Dracula was a real enemy, and the two of them teamed up. So seeing how their version of Man Thing was like the big heavy, big muscular powers, but he still wasn't a purely evil monster. His nature overtook it, and the Wolfman here was protecting him.
Yeah, no, it had everything it needed, and the film styling and everything just, I think, put it over the top of what it may have otherwise been. I think it just landed very well with its style on top of its tones. All right, a quick grade. What did you guys think?
Oof, we're grading this? I was not prepared for this. Mike, you go first. I got to think.
I don't even know how to grade it. Like,
I was not prepared for a grade. I thought we were just talking about it and move on.
I would say, for me, somewhere between a B plus, A minus area, kind of wavery. It doesn't make me want to watch like another thing exactly like
In
it.
the words of our podcast brother Keith, I'm gonna rock with that. As Keith would say, I'm gonna rock with that.
It's entertaining.
Yeah,
It does everything it's trying to do. Go ahead.
Like, it wasn't really a horror. Like, it didn't scare me that much. It wasn't like
No.
really thrilling, but it was entertaining. It was a great like throwback to these classics.
But that transformation scene was tremendous.
That
Yeah,
was
not
great,
too scary,
Yeah.
but from Chris's point, you see from the eyes of her, and then you're like, oh shit, he's about to go. But you know, but go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, no worries. Like I'm in that B plus area too, so that's my score.
I'm gonna give it a B plus. I kind of want to give it an A minus. Maybe I need to watch it one more time, but I'm gonna stick with the B plus right now.
It's definitely I love when they get a genre meld like this that's very heavily stylized. That it's a one-off thing that's very interesting.
If I'm nitpicking real quick, Chris, with my grade, it's because of the tertiary characters or secondary characters they present us in the beginning were just so easily dispatched. And I'm like, oh, I was kind of hoping to get it. So that's why I'm not giving it an A minus. Because we even talk about the other characters that exist in this universe that, you know.
It was like Cobra Soldiers. You know they were fun to look at, but other than that, they all had the fancy costumes. But then they came out, they did some kung fu, and then they got killed.
That's hilarious.
Like I remember,
so because of that,
collecting all those
I'm
guys.
sticking with the B plus. I'm sticking with the B. Yeah, because they used to come two in a pack at minimum, right? Yeah, nobody bought a single Cobra Soldier. Yeah,
So,
I'm good. I'm good with my B plus.
Do we have the minus points because it has no relation to Phase 4 or 5?
No. We're not doing the
hater
soup
buddies
thing.
out there.
This is not Heroes Peak. No, Heroes Peak is not part of that. No, we don't do that shit here.
How dare you? Where's Kang? I want to see Kang.
Yeah, cameo should be fun.
What was Doctor Strange doing in the middle of this?
Not the important. Yeah, exactly. Why didn't he fix it? All right.
How come the Eternals didn't come and help the werewolf?
All right, guys. Let's move on. We're gonna take a break for a minute. When we come back, we're gonna talk House of the Dragon. And
oof, that's a big one.
Yeah, nobody touch any cousins on their way to the studio.
Thanksgiving's gonna be weird for some folks.
Filmed in Alabama.
Chris caught that.
Oh, welcome back, everybody. And we're here to talk about Season 1 of House of the Dragon, the 2022 prequel series to the series I never watched, the
HBO's Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it wasn't very popular. It didn't do well.
House of Thrones, Game of Thrones.
They only did 8 seasons.
Game of Thrones is like the original trilogy of Star Wars, and now you're watching the Star Wars prequel with
prequels.
Yeah.
With their parents.
You just finished watching The Phantom Menace.
So, this one is 10 episodes, created by Ryan J. Condal, and of course based on the George R.R. Martin books. And wow, some of the names here, and a huge cast.
Don't do it, Chris.
I'm not going through. Matt Smith. There we go. That will work.
Matt Smith.
I can say Matt Smith 100 times, I'm sure. But as the only person who didn't age, Matt Smith is the only one I will talk about.
Yeah, but Sarah's kind of aged.
I don't know.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
You've heard of this. You've seen this, right? You know what that is.
It is unavoidable. It is your destiny.
Is this not why you are here?
Do or do not. There is no choice.
Knock that shit off.
All right, so let's talk about this. Is the full 10 episodes. It's okay to talk about spoilers, guys, if you need to talk about it in the series. But there's a lot to talk about with a series like this. And let's start just with the overall. Did you have expectations? I know you guys have watched Game of Thrones. I have not. I basically cultural osmosis have some Game of Thrones knowledge. I've seen a lot of kills online. That's about it. What did you guys think overall of the series in comparison? Even if you say, "Oh, it was better than the last 3 seasons, but not as good as the first 4," kind of thing.
Chris, allow me to go first here, real quick. So yeah, like Mike, I've watched the Game of Thrones all 8 seasons. I was not an original book reader. That was
Same here.
my wife who did it, and she would add in some filler information for me, and then eventually I did like you guys know me to do. I went on Wikipedia and digested the entire freaking summary of the books.
Right.
So seeing the trailers, seeing what I knew about the Targaryen dynasty, you caught that? I thought it would be interesting to see it on screen. What I didn't realize was what HBO was doing is they're doing a lot of time jumps and time skips, because the story itself, the Dance of the Dragons, which is what this show is based on, encompasses like at least almost a decade, actually more than a decade worth of character building and world building. That being said, I watched the show like we all did in real time, and it was in my mind, it was very choppy, because they decided to take certain elements of the original story and kind of like The Hobbit from Lord of the Rings. I hate doing that comparison, where The Hobbit expanded on something that was only 3 pages.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing happened with the House of the Dragon, where they took maybe 2 or 3 pages of a story between Rhaenyra and Alicent and made it like 3 episodes. And I'm like, wow, like what the hell? Now, this was, other than Rings of Power, this is supposed to be the most expensive production on television by HBO. Definitely for HBO, not for Amazon. And I was let down by the CGI and the green screens. Like, I don't know, they didn't do the same technology until the final episode, which you haven't seen, where like Obi-Wan and all the other big shows are doing right now, where you have to, they didn't do it until the final finale, which you're going to get.
Yeah, but a lot of the sets, they actually built a lot of the sets.
Yeah, but they did it also in the original Game of Thrones. But even then, I didn't have the same feeling. Like the wind was really blowing through the character's hair or his hair as they were having a conversation. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the point I'm trying to make, Chris, is I think this season was a prequel to a prequel, and I think season 2 is really the start. I know. Season 2 really is the start of what this show is really meant to be about.
So it's kind of like episode 1, when really episode 2 is what we cared about.
This is episode 0. But yeah.
So, you know what though? I thought
Mike.
it was a great kickoff. James, can you go on mute for a minute? I'm going to mute.
Sure.
That party's getting loud over there.
They're starting to come in.
So, I thought it was a great start. I wasn't into the books as well for this one either. I didn't read the books for this one, so it did, like, the first couple episodes I was kind of like, where are we going, because again, like, while I'm familiar, I watched every Game of Thrones episode, so I'm familiar with the universe. These are all new characters, so you got to say, well, okay, now we got these little kids, and I wasn't expecting the time jump so soon. And there's a lot of things. So I'm with James a little bit about the choppiness here and there in the storytelling. So not because of what should be short was expanded or what should be long was shortened, but just in general as a watcher and not a reader, you're kind of like, well, where are they going with this and this? It's almost like they were trying to do too much in this first season. Maybe. I don't know.
Right.
So overall, though, I'm still impressed. It was still turned out better than I expected. Because when I was first reading about it, I was like, I don't know where this is going to go, if this is going to do it for me like seasons 1 to 7 of Game of Thrones, right? So.
I like how you purposely omitted season 8, but yeah.
I caught that, did you?
Yeah, I caught that.
Yo, actually, I rewatched season 8 recently, and it's not as bad as, like, I was watching the. Sorry, Chris, I don't mean to diverge for a second, but
No, let's go for
the
it.
battle with the walkers, the White
The
Walkers.
White Walkers, yeah.
It was
And
actually
then,
more well done than I gave it credit for the first time. I know.
no,
I
it
thought it
was.
was, except for
All right.
the
I'll
fact
let
that
you
they
say your
couldn't
piece.
film at night, or they couldn't light up the nighttime for some reason. I thought it was well done. So anyway, back to you.
Chris, that season 8 made Justice League, both the Snyder and Josh Whedon cut, look like Godfather 1 and
Oh
2.
no!
That's how terrible season 8 was.
All right.
Like, did you notice in this show, the fact that they did time skips and they actually build the world where you felt like, okay, this takes time for me to do this and the third. Season 8 was just like, oh, send a raven, boom. Okay, dragons are here, boom. A whole army pops out of
Yeah,
nowhere.
that
So, not
obviously,
to digress
that
on
was the
season 8 of
problem
Game
with
of
it too.
Thrones. It was
Because
terrible.
what did we only had? We only had like a 6-episode season 8, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
So they had to wrap everything up, and that was kind of disappointing. But let's get back to you.
Yeah, to get back to so one thing I want to make a point real quick, if we don't make a point about it, is the casting choices and the performances of each of the actors and actresses. I think, obviously Severance, Andor, maybe a lesser extent Rings of Power are going to be top when 2022 is over. I think House of the Dragon, although maybe the plot and the narrative wasn't as heavy and good as I wanted to be, it's phenomenal performances by almost all of the acting
Patty,
cast.
king,
dude.
the king himself. I don't. Did you see?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Riz Ifans?
No,
I think
not
is
Reese.
his name.
He's the hand of the king. I'm talking about Patty Considine.
Patty
Yeah.
Considine.
Oh,
He played
yeah,
the
yeah,
king.
yeah,
He
yeah.
played the king.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
His transformation from the young king to the old man missing an eye, and you got to give it up for the effects department too. They did a great job with that.
Dude, when I saw this scene when he was walking to the Iron Throne, and I'm like, this basically is like for consideration of the Emmys and Golden Globes. Like, it's telling. It's telling what they're doing.
Yeah, that was
Yeah. So,
Matt Smith came up
that was
to him.
episode 9, right?
Yeah.
So that's Chris. You saw that?
what? Yeah, I saw episode 8.
Yeah.
Episode 8 is where he limps his
Oh
way to the
shit! You
throne.
didn't see it. No, that's episode 8. You're right. Yeah, episode 8.
So let me see where I can go with this.
Sorry, we're kind of all over the place
this
with this
is not-
review, but there's a lot
Yeah,
to talk
no,
about.
No, this is perfectly fine. I like this chaotic format.
Yeah.
Keep it going, Chris.
For me, this is not a series after hearing about it that I would normally watch. Like watching The Boys, 90% of the characters you're like, okay, if everybody dies, that's okay by me. But I still want like mother's milk to make it, right? That sounds good. But this cast, like every time I was like, oh, maybe I like that character. No, I don't like that person. But
Chris,
as I went through,
between this, real quick, what's the difference between this? Because it's a great point. I want to make sure we hone on this point. In the original Game of Thrones, which you haven't seen yet, it was the same scenario where there was a lot of people you didn't like, and the ones that you did like, they died within 2 or 3 episodes.
Right.
So this House of the Dragons is showing us where none of them are dying yet. We don't like any of them.
So this was my issue.
Whereas Game of Thrones gave you certain characters you liked, and then killed them off the next episode.
Do you remember when we did our Lord of the Rings, our Rings of Power review with Keith? And I talked about when I watched Game of Thrones, there were characters you would root for, that you wanted to survive, that you were pulling for, like Arya and Jon Snow, and these were characters that you wanted to succeed and survive. And I was saying that in this show in particular so far, there isn't really anybody I'm rooting for. Like, I don't care who dies so far. Maybe
you want
Daenerys,
you want a dragon uprising to burn everybody.
Dude, when you go online or Reddit, you see this Team Green versus Team Black, Team Allison versus Team Rainier. I'm like, I'm Team Dragons, baby. Let these poor animals free. I'm rooting for the freaking dragons, none of the humans.
But after that,
no, I was going to say the only one, like Rhaenyra.
No.
The
All
only
right,
reason I'm
so
rooting
and
for
this
her
is what I'll say.
because she was promised the throne, and they're trying to take it away from her. That's it.
She slept with her uncle.
So
Stop it.
yeah,
But it's
all
it's
right. So
it's the Alabama of the sci-fi world. So
And then she slept with another man while she was married to
yeah,
another
but
guy. Dude, we can go
they
on
had
and
an
on about
arrangement.
which was fine.
Yeah.
Which is fine because they both slept with men
That's-
while they were married, so it was
She
okay.
also slept with the knight, Kristen Cole.
Yeah, that.
No, dude.
All right,
No.
all right. If there's anybody I hate the most, it's probably Kristen Cole.
Oh man.
That dude.
Oh yeah, he's there. Yeah, he's down there. He's down there. He's bottom 3. Yes.
Right. But
Yeah,
okay,
I'm not saying she's a
outside
good
of
person. I'm saying out of everyone, I'm probably rooting for her because she was promised. I would like to see her on the throne.
right.
That's it.
All right. So for me, outside of the idea that I dislike all of these people, that's fine. I get it. At this point, I'm understanding that tone of the show. It is fascinating to watch the construction of you're not going to see anybody who lives outside the castle. These are all people that are one percenters, and they're all going to be fighting to be in line, if not at the top of the tower. Like that's the whole idea. You're not going to see a handmaiden that you're going to root for that's going to make her way, and what that's not a thing. So understanding that, okay, I kind of get into it. I liked where the show started with the young Allison and Rhaenyra as friends, and seeing them kind of forced apart by the whole succession idea. Just
By the parents. By the
like
parents, yes.
not even by their parents, because at some point they basically pick up the succession drive themselves, and they kind of force themselves apart.
Well, the reason why, no, hold on. The reason why I say their parents is, if you recall, in the first 2 episodes, Alice's father, who's already hand of the king, was orchestrating her rise to be. Meanwhile, Rhaenyra's father, who's the current king, had to pick an heir because he lost his son. So I think their parents. There's a bigger issue with their storyline. Is both daughters are at fault because of their family and their fathers, and what their father's grand design had for each of them. Rhaenyra's father wanted her to be heir because he felt like, okay, I'm not having a son, you're going to be the heir, despite the fact that there's never been a woman queen before. And then Alice's father was more like, okay, I want to build my family's name, and I want you to dress your best outfit and go see the king and start wooing him. These are women who are friends that, because of their dads, wind up becoming mortal enemies.
Right, but at some point, both of them have complete power within the relationships they're in. Can you mute?
I disagree on that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, they absolutely. So if we go to let's go to episode 8. So where I last left off. So Rhaenyra basically kicks her husband to the curb, marries her uncle, and she's in line for the throne. She now has multiple kids, all of which have eyes on the throne. Allison, the king, is basically completely out of it. She has complete control of the castle. They get together and they're immediately at odds. They're not making up. They're not old friends. They're not. Rhaenyra offers marriage. I understand she's doing this not from a place of power, because she's worried about losing her control because of what she did with the knight or whatever. But between the two of them, they have absolute control of what can happen. But they're allowing the power struggle to keep them divided.
I disagree, because there's two instances in the show where they tell you they don't. One is when Rhaenys, and I think it might be episode 9, so it might be a little bit ahead of you, who the Queen of Never Was, has a very blatant conversation with Alicent. When Alicent thinks she's in control of things, she wants to protect her firstborn son as the future king, and she says, "You're not really in control. You're basically a prisoner building a window in your prison." You think you're free, but you're not. Your father, who now's returned, is now orchestrating your son's rise to power, and you are a part of that.
But she knows that. She already knows that.
Real quick, Rhaenyra, her issue is, even as her dad is becoming decrepit and sickly, the fact that he never came out staunchly to say, okay, 20 years ago, everybody bended the knee and made her the future queen, and he went silent on that. David now comes in a situation as her husband and is like orchestrating the events for her to be the aggressor. So the way I see it, and I watched the show, I think the full season twice now. These women who are key political, powerful symbols are being orchestrated by the men in their lives, their dads, their uncles, Laris, the freaking whisperer dude in Allison's ear, Crispin Cole. They're like, ultimately, they're supposed to be like the two, the fighting, the two, but they're not fighting because they want to fight. And you gotta watch episode 9 of this one. They're fighting because the men in their lives are, the Game of Thrones is happening around them, and they're like the queens on a chess piece.
But I don't think they're completely innocent within this structure. At first they are. The initial, they are definitely, Rhaenyra is only there because she's a spare. Like, she's it. That's all he's got until Alicent has a kid. She's the only thing keeping the line intact. So that's why she's used. And Alicent is only there because her dad wants her to be there. But what I'm saying is, after the time jump, they're both fully involved. They both fully
Come to a certain extent, but there's a moment where Alicent realizes she's losing control of a lot, and she's calling to the wrong people to help her. And in fact, there's people with their own priorities.
I'm not saying that there aren't.
Her father, Kristen Cole.
That's kind of the
even
whole,
her husband.
The whole show is everybody making moves all the time. It absolutely is. Everybody. But Alicent and Rhaenyra are absolutely part of it. They are not innocent bystanders. They are not
I'm
just
not calling them innocent. I agree with you. I'm not calling them innocent. But I think that you have to understand what's happening in a larger scale of the show. Because they're being, from the time they were young, they were being played as key pivotal characters in this show. Both their dads were playing these young girls into the position that we're watching them right now.
But it's not just the young girls being played. Every child in this show is a piece. Alicent is very willing to marry off her kids for power. So is Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra's like, hey, let's marry the cousins off because I didn't screw a black guy.
But understand what was happening is, but even in that moment, no, Chris, great moment, but even in that situation, it's not coming from them directly. It's coming from the aunts and uncles. The fact that the Corliss was talking to Rhaenyra about marrying them, and she's that's a great idea. Viserys, there's other people giving them the insight to marry off their own children.
Yeah, but that's it for them. That's what they know as. That's how that works. Like, that's how you secure power, is through the marrying of your children and holding a line.
I'm not going to beat this part of the
No. I think what I'm saying is that wedge I found really interesting as it made its way into the people who were just pieces for power initially, until they took that and
There's a moment in episode 9 that you have to look out for. There is a letter that was shown in episode 1 gets brought back in episode 9 between the two women, Alicent and Rhaenyra. I think you might see my point a little bit clearer when you see that scene.
We'll watch that. Okay, so for me,
I just want to say, can I just add real quick?
Sorry, Mike.
It's okay. The only thing I'm going to add is Alicent's father turned out to be more of a bastard than I thought he was. Like, as soon as the king died...
Ooh, I saw that coming from episode 1.
I knew he was sneaky, but as soon as the king died and he was like, oh, by the way, the king mentioned that my grandson should be the new king. And I was like,
Hold on. You're spoiling episode 9. You're
No,
spoiling episode 9.
This is not a surprise.
Right.
Like I know this is coming.
Basically, he was orchestrating usurping Rhaenyra before
Oh yeah,
Viserys even
absolutely.
died.
You can tell. That's why he got his daughter in there. You know he wanted to be in get his kids in line.
And it was a surprise to her. You're gonna see episode 9. You're gonna see a lot of things. Even she was shocked. She was
But
like,
at the
wait, what?
at the end of episode 8, the king tells her something as in like a dying thing about how her children need to take
Song
over.
of Fire and Ice, which connects the original Game of Thrones series, but
I don't think any of that's
misinterpreted. Yeah, she's misinterpreting it as her child and not like the future show Jon Snow.
Yeah.
Spoiler. But she goes into a council and brings that up. They're like, man, that's old news. We're already moving on.
Right.
We already moved on. Like, we have our own. All right, we spoiled the episode 9 for you.
I think the time skipping for me was a bit annoying. I understand the purpose because a lot of the games are playing with, hey, my children or my grandchildren or they have to take over and they have to marry, and that's all part of the game here. But it was like you start an episode and you'd be waiting, like listening to the dialogue, hoping someone would tell you what year it was, basically. Because you're like, okay, so when is this taking place? How old is this person now? Right? When Rhaenyra was 18 on a throne and when she was looking for suitors. Like, we lost Mike. Lost James.
Yeah. Okay. Just hang on for a second.
Just keep going. But when she was doing that, I was like, okay, how old is she now? Like, and we come to find out it was like 2 years or 3 years after, because you find out Alicent has a kid, and you're like, oh, you're waiting for context clues for time skips. And like, I felt like my ability to have a sense of place, of location, a sense of distance between places when they were talking about going to the land of the ships or whatever they are. Yeah. I don't know how far that is, how long it takes. Like it never felt like anything. It's like in Star Wars when they're like, I'm going to go to Endor and I'm there in, when we have that wipe.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it relies
nothing seems
on,
big or distant.
Yeah, a lot of it relies
weird.
on your knowledge of Game of Thrones, right? Like the previous show.
Yeah, and without that, I was very lost.
Yeah, because they spot off a lot of locations, and to the new viewer who's never seen Game of Thrones, you'd be like, what is all this?
It's like reading World War II history book for the first time. Like, wait, what? Prussia? Huh?
They talk about the Narrow Sea and all that stuff, and if you watch Game of Thrones, right, then you'll know what what those places are. So
yeah, so it was a bit. It wasn't that I couldn't keep up with the time skips. It was more like, okay, I don't know where I'm starting this at the beginning of each episode, and that was a bit annoying.
This has been a tough watch if you did not watch the original Game of Thrones.
I know,
it's almost like watching Rings of Power and never watching any Lord of the Rings. Like,
that's why I was surprised, Chris, that you watched it, because you mentioned you never seen Game of Thrones. I was like, wow.
Rings of Power felt like they tried to get me up to speed with location, history, at least a little bit. This didn't feel like that. They tried to keep me... Like, it's not like they pulled back and there was a map and I could see where Dragon's Landing is versus...
Dragonstone. Dragonstone, get it right.
Right, whatever.
Dragon's Landing.
He's like, Tatooine? No, Tatooine. Get it right.
Yeah. The Stepstones or something like that they were constantly talking about. Like, it didn't mean anything. And then there was that, like, the whole thing with the crab sailor.
King. Yeah, that was trash. Yeah. That was trash. Yeah.
It was like, is that a big deal? Is it a small deal? Is it easy? It looked really easy when you finally took care of it.
Page in the book that they dragged out in the show.
Okay.
It was just weird with how much they talked about it and how much they built it up and how tough this crab dude was. and then when it came down to it, it was like one dude on a dragon. Just
dude, if you were reading Reddit, there's so many folks that are pissed that the war lasted. I think it was 4 years, according to the show. For 4 years, they were at a standstill against the Crab King, and everybody was like, "Why can't the dragon just burn them all out?" And they were like, "Well, he's got to go to the cave. They're all retreating to the caves." He's like, "Yeah, but the dragon go in and like smoke them out." Like, but they got arrows. And dude, that was a huge Reddit argument and trolling between people about why that war lasted 4 years because they had a dragon.
And then it just took Damon walking up by himself.
He went Zelda mode, Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, right.
Triforce.
So, I don't know. I think at this point, because of what the show is, the most interesting thing is just talking about individual actors and what they did. You guys already mentioned the King. You're right. He amazing work, especially because he's the one who has the biggest physical change over the time period. But I thought going from the younger actresses to the older actresses for Rhaenyra and Alicent, the casting and the actors themselves, both old and young, did a wonderful job in keeping that.
They did. And I hate kid actors, children actors, but these ones, wherever they got them from, America, Europe, great actors. Even down to like the younger kids in the latter half of the show where they're playing Rhaenyra's sons. There's a scene, I think it's episode 7 when he gets Vhagar, where Aemon, Aegon, the two strong boys, and then the Baylor girls.
Wait, you're talking about the jump where the cousins jump
Dude,
the one cousin?
I've never seen a fight between little kids that graphic. Of course, it's
Dude,
HBO.
that girl punched him in
It's HBO. Why am I shocked? That was probably, I was like, holy kid, these kids are going at it. Like, the stunt choreography of that must have been superb just to make sure no one really got hurt. With the rock and then the sword. To me, all those kids were superb actors. And I'm like, wow. Again, I'm not a fan of child actors, but that was great.
I don't know which one the actor is. It may be Ewan Mitchell. I'm not sure. But the kid who loses an eye, when you first see him, and he basically went from a little sniveling annoyance to like the badass in the room. I was like, that's a cool character transformation.
Yeah, well, he basically stole a dragon, right?
I want to watch. He stole the dragon.
He stole the biggest and baddest dragon alive. Don't forget that.
Right, and when the two princes are running around and they're like, oh, it's just like I remember, and they're like normal little kids, and then they go over to this fight, and you see him turn around, and he's got the scar, and he's got the eye patch, and he's kicking Kristen's ass. I was like, do I like this character?
Oh, wait till episode 10.
I'm sure he's going to be a terrible
The finale, the last 10 minutes. You're gonna change your mind, but yeah.
I think really interesting their decision making on how to make the stress of being a prince weigh on each one differently. The stress of the older one basically turning into the worst drunkard,
rapist,
piece of shit, rapist. Like he just can't handle.
Yeah, heavy is the crown, as they say, but that dude is a bastard, an asshole.
Well, and having Alicent like come down, like she walks into the room and he's like, I think he's like pissing or jerking off into the in the window, like over the crowd.
Wait, hold on. You didn't get to the episode where Aegon, the actual firstborn, had raped one of the maidens? We didn't get to that.
Right.
Yeah, that was 8.
She gives them like their version of the Plan B.
Yeah.
There and like
tea that they drink. Yeah.
Well, that's what Rhaenyra had. Was the tea. They gave Rhaenyra after.
And this is the guy that she wants to be king. That's all I gotta say.
I think we can all agree that Rhaenyra has a terrible choice in men.
But that's, again, I guess daddy issues. Terrible daddy issues. She watched her mom. She didn't watch her mom die because she wasn't there, so can't blame that.
But her parents loved each other. Like that was obvious.
Did they?
Yeah, no, they seemed
not
to
have that cesarean section.
I don't
And
think
like,
I don't think that was like modern day do anything die with you kind of love. But as far as that kind of relationship you get in this kind of show, it was the best,
yes,
most loving
you're right.
relationship I've ever
You're
seen from a
correct.
show.
The best one I've seen on this show, not Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
And the king was always, he wanted his family to be good and love each other, or like each other and be
He was just
friendly.
a terrible king and didn't know how to really raise
And that's the
his
problem.
one and only child, his daughter. Yeah.
If he was like a farmer, he would be a great dad, but he was a terrible king. He could not
Terrible
run the
king.
place. He could not control the people. He could not. He just wanted. He was so worried what other people.
Peace.
He was so worried about peace and what other people would think of
So,
his.
so you made it to his death, right? When he goes, before that, he goes, "Was I a peaceful king?" Like, whatever you remember it as. Motherfucker, what are you, Joe Biden right now? Sorry, I didn't mean to get political,
No.
subs.
You're right.
All right. Well, why don't we do a final grade for you guys? Could do a final grade for the season.
Mike, you go
No,
first.
I went first for Werewolf. It's your turn.
Fine, that's fair, that's fair. Oh, final grade with all my knowledge of Wikipedia and watching the original show. I can't give it an A. I cannot. I can't give it a C either. So I'm gonna stick with a B minus.
Okay. I enjoyed it, I think, a little more than you did.
That's fair.
Still, one of my favorite couples is still from Game of Thrones, Sam and what's her name I mentioned the other day.
Oh yeah, when they were in the Maester's library studying. Chris has
You gotta watch that.
he's gonna love it. But to me, you know what? My favorite couple is Ned Stark and what's her name?
Catelyn.
The mom.
Yeah.
Catelyn. That's the best couple ever in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So my grade.
Too bad they both had tragic endings. By the way, Chris. You like these characters? They die horrifically.
What else would happen?
If you think House of the Dragon is rough, wait till you get to the Red Wedding.
Dude, wait to see how the good guys
I
get
tell you,
killed
when
in
the
Game of
entire
Thrones.
family sat down for dinner with the king, I assumed somebody was about to die, and I was oddly wrong.
Because you remember, there's a phrase called the Red Wedding in the original series. That is probably the most grotesque, horrific thing ever on television.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, but go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, my grade. I'm going to give it an A minus. So, yeah.
Wow, A minus.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Fuck.
So I hope they don't let me down.
Yeah. Well, as I run into the finals here, I'm hovering in the B area because just for the well acted and high intrigue, but I don't find it as entertaining as these other shows I'm watching. Unfortunately, it's just not necessarily my bag that way. But for quality wise, I think it's great. But I tell you, when I was watching the first 3 episodes, I just kept going, is everything happening in the same studio? It was like constantly everything was happening in like a courtyard or a conference room. I was like,
so when the first 2 seasons of Game of Thrones, the South Park even made a joke about this. The garden, where they all went and conspired treasoning, because there was always that one area where they all have to meet. Ooh, we got to take down the king, blah, blah, blah. And in season 3, they had a bigger budget. HBO, they had ships. They went to Scotland. They went to Iceland. And then by season 4, they were freaking all over the freaking world, Spain, whatever, Portugal. But this show, to me, I think I said it earlier, felt like it was all like constrained in one location or a soundstage.
Yeah.
To your point, Chris.
But the dragons look great. Riding the dragons doesn't look as good, but the dragons themselves.
Episode 10, baby.
Awesome.
Episode 10. The last 15 minutes.
All right.
That's all I gotta say.
All right. I'll let you know. All right, that's it for us this week.
Wait, what was your grade? Your final grade?
I don't have a final grade yet.
B.
I'm hovering in a B because I haven't finished it yet, but that's about where I am. So it could crash and burn like a Marvel series, or it could go up.
Mike, he said crash and burn. That is so apropos to what he has to watch the next 2 episodes.
All right.
I didn't spoil it. He did.
I didn't spoiler. All right. Thank you everybody for joining us. Why don't why don't you send us a Twitter or a Facebook message and tell us whether or not I should watch Game of Thrones. I think I want to hear from you guys what you think.
Yeah, you gotta watch Game of Thrones. You gotta power through Game of Thrones, and don't let season 1 make it feel like, this show's just a little too dark, a little too. Power through season 1. By the time you get to season 3, you're gonna like the show.
You sound like you're recommending an anime. Like, just that first couple of seasons.
Holy
I know
shit,
they're terrible,
I do sound like that. Oh my god, I'm like Bizarre Chris recommending Naruto. Holy shit.
Now, you want to jump to Shippuden, which is actually a second series.
Listen, both you and Eric tried to recommend me watch that show, and I gave up, so no. Game of Thrones is much better.
It's not for everybody. Yeah. All right, Mike, why don't you tell everybody where they can find us, where they can give us their likes and stars and upvotes.
Mike, you're on mute. You muted yourself and not me.
Muted. Yep, there we go. So, as usual, we're all over the internet at Heroes Peak, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment below, and hit that bell in the corner to get notifications.
All right.
Please leave a comment. Do not text us. Do not Facebook message us. Leave a comment. If you agree, disagree, or neutral, just leave a comment. It really helps our channel expand and get us more visibility to you guys. So please leave a comment.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Take care.
Chakari.
Hey, Indigo made the beat.